EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good morning. Welcome to Weather Weeklies for Sunday, January 12th, 2025. We're back to the regular format again today after I had some computer problems last week and we did it in more of a daily forecast video format. But we're back to the normal format today, and I have to start off by saying that, you know, this is the time of year when we're not getting enough snow, and here it is January 12th, and you know, people are trying to cancel winter and saying winter's over, it's going to be another bust. If you look at the numbers so far that we have year to date, everybody's getting something here. It's just not quite as much as you should. It's not that far behind, though. We are getting some snow across the region to this point, and it really didn't start until December for most places, but of course we had up in the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area, had that big storm that dumped about 12.5 inches of snow in late November, so they got a good jump start. Otherwise, since then, they are two behind, but ahead year to date. So the rest of us, you know, we're getting something here. It's just even Atlantic City checking in with 5 inches of snow after this past week or so. With a couple different systems, and you're very close to average there too. So we're not that far behind. It won't take much to get snow going again. I just don't think it's going to be before the 20th. Don't think you're seeing anything before the 20th. And so until then, that's going to be a mostly dry period. We're going to have a couple storm signals that we have in the Friday long range outlook that are beyond the 20th. And so I think that's what we're going to be focusing on going forward. And I really like those periods. And the reason it's a little bit more likable than the last time is we had a lot of cold. We had a cold, but it was cold and dry. The ensembles aren't suggesting it's going to be dry. Okay, so when we go into like late this month, straight through February, as long as they can see, they're showing above average precipitation. So you combine that with colder temperatures, and you know it doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. So they're unanimously on that idea of a wetter February, certainly. So we have our long range outlook projections from the other day. We're looking at a slightly above average precipitation projection for the month of February. Okay, we have had that maintained from the previous week, carried over to this week also, so that has not changed. We are looking at below average temperatures for this month. I think it ends up in this -2 to -4 category. We're going to have this over this next week, have a kind of like a transient up and down pattern, not up, but it's going to be there a couple of those days ahead of cold fronts as they move through. Like right now, we're turning, getting close to average today on Sunday, and then near that as well on Monday. I think as we get into the Friday, Saturday timeframe this week, we'll do the same thing after being very cold Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So those kind of up and down stuff we're going to be doing this upcoming week. But then after we get past that cold front on next Saturday, it should turn very cold and should last for a little while. Okay, at least through the end of this month. So we do have the below average projection here, still slightly below average precipitation in January as a whole. But I think we're going to get a lot more active as we get into that last full week to 10 days of the month of January. Okay, so here's what average snowfall is in January. We're looking at the numbers on the left here in this column, and it peaks in February, climatologically speaking, as far as how much snow you can get at each location. That's the highest of any month. The exception would be the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area. It's slightly higher this month, but I do think you do have opportunities to get this and at least slightly above average. You see this right here. This is still a projection of slightly above average because we expect that active turn at the end of this month, and it won't take much to get to these totals right here for the month of January by itself. I think you can do that still. So we're going to leave it as is and focus on that after 20th period. So we did, the Climate Prediction Center did in fact come out this week and say, I think it was Thursday, they said that we did in fact reach a weak La Nina in late December. We reached that threshold, but since then these numbers have been coming back up. Okay, so they're not in La Nina territory any longer. They're in a negative ENSO still, but they are back in the neutral territory if you take a composite average of these four regions. And to break it down further, the western regions, Nino 4 and Nino 3.4, are in La Nina territory. Nino 3 and 1 and 2 are not. They are solidly and ENSO neutral. Okay, so you add those, you make that as an average of those four regions, and you're looking at about -0.3 as an ONI, and that means that we're still in a or at least right now, going back into ENSO neutral after very briefly hitting the La Nina threshold. Okay, so here is the Madden-Julian oscillation. This is going to be very important going forward here as far as what phases the best tropical forcing is in is going to determine it affects our jet streams with latent heat release processes and things like that, and how things like the EPO. It'll affect things like basically your temperatures and your precipitation or active period. So these are in January anyway in a negative ENSO. We're now in phase 1, which is right about here, right where they have that dot. So we're going to go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And that's where they start to diverge a little bit, although not as much as before. So these are all cold phases right there, all of them. They're all cold phases. Once you get into around the 23rd or so, you might have a brief 1 day or 1 or 2 days here in phase 4 before it goes into the circle of death. The GFS, this is interesting because the GFS ensemble has been going back and forth on this. This is the extended ensemble that I'm showing you on the left. Before it was taken up through the maritime continent, which would mean a torch. We would go back into milder temperatures in February, not in January, but in February. It's backing off of that now. You see it's more going through phase 3 and then collapsing into the circle of death like this. Okay, that's what the European ensemble is doing as well, the extended ensemble. So they're both doing the same thing generally now. At the longer range, it's doing other things, but where it just keeps it in the circle in the European guidance. But this kind of this transition here is going to be very important to determining how February plays out. I don't think February is... I'm starting to back away from the torch idea where the entire month is going to be torchy. It's looking like it's going to be more and more like maybe a week or so that it turns slightly milder than average. Nothing crazy, just a little bit, and then we go back into cold again. That's what it's starting to look like in this progression, if this is correct. If it goes into solidly phase 4 and phase 5 and keeps going, that's a torch pattern. It is. There's no two ways about it. So the fact that the GFS ensemble is backing off of that and going more closer to what the European guidance has been having all along, it makes me think that this is going to last too long. Whatever we have in February, you might have a brief, like a transient relaxation period for 4, 5, 6 days, whatever, and then it goes back to cold again. That's what we're looking at. Here's what since it is going through phase 1, phase 2, here's what a negative ENSO of MJO phase 2, which is what we're headed into. And you see the upper air pattern here. We get a little bit of a gradient, southeast ridge kind of pushing a little bit here, and then you have a negative EPO coming in. With the phase 2 look, and it just so happens that is what the models are showing right around the 20th. This is after the cold front moves through on Saturday, and we get all this cold coming in. You get a cross polar flow here, as you see. You get a strong negative EPO bridging in Alaska, and at the start of this period, I think there's going to be a winter storm signal. That's one of the winter storm signals. When it first settles in, then it gets really cold for several days. And then as it starts to relax a little bit, then you get back into the more storms. So we have 2 different storm signals here past the 20th. But the cold will be established by the time we get to, this is the 20th, this is Monday. It'll be established by then, okay? So this is all the storm signals will be past that point. This is being assisted. This look here is not just MJO Phase 2, but also an East Asian mountain torque episode that is ongoing. Observed data. This is not projected. I mean, this is showing Tuesday, what it will look like on Tuesday, but it's already starting. If you look at the observed data in this region, this is China, right? So East Asian mountain torque, positive East Asian mountain torque is going to set up the EPO down the line, so we're going to get this look as a result of that too. So this is helping. They're working in unison. So this is good. So if you're wanting the snow, the cold, not the snow. If you're looking for the colder pattern to settle in and have staying power, this is what will do it. And the East Asian mountain torque will ensure that it's not just for a day or two. It's going to stay for a while, and it probably stays throughout the end of the remainder of the month. And you see what the EPO does here over right around the 20th when that. Or 19th or so when that cold front comes through, and then it just dips to negative and it stays negative. It just very slowly rises left at that point, but it's staying negative this entire time. This goes all the way through, I don't have my reading glasses on. I think this is the 27th or 28th. So it's going through the end of the month, basically, where it's staying negative here. So that's going to give us the cold for a sustainable period of time. Looking at this from look at the temperature periods and how this evolves. You can see all this cold coming in with that cross-polar flow, and this goes all the way out to, I think, the 26th of January. So this comes in right after that cold front that we have this next Saturday, next weekend. And then the cold settles in after that and stays colder than average for a while. And this is what it looks like graphically. Okay, so this is taking Allentown, Lehigh Valley International Airport, which is the centermost point of our entire coverage region, which goes as far east as the Jersey Shore, of course, as far south as Ocean City, Maryland, and the Maryland Eastern Shore. And we cover all the way out past State College and that area too. So this is kind of like the centermost point. Excuse me. This is the temperatures over the next 2 weeks. You see, this is what I was talking about for this week. We're dry this week. We're not getting anything going, but today and of course tomorrow will be mild or near average days, and then we dip down for a couple days, and we go back up again Friday, Saturday. So it's up and down stuff, and then Sunday starts coming down. And look at it tank after that. This is that negative EPO influence, and then it only slowly rises after that. Oh, Lord. Let me get a sip of my coffee here because it's dusty in my office. I probably should clean in here. But anyway, so this is the way it's going to go. But it looks like, and this is agreed upon on just about everything. Average highs 38 here, average lows 31. So we are going to be colder than average, especially in that 21st to 23rd time frame. I think you're really going to be cold. But I mean, this isn't. You're going to hear a lot of headlines. Oh, the polar vortex is coming, and they're going to be talking about this brutal cold. I hear about it on our social media. And all the time, like, what happened to that? What happened to the brutal cold? And I'm like, well, we didn't say it was going to be brutal. I don't know what you're talking to. You hear it somewhere else, and you come to our page and drop your dirty laundry. But this has nothing to do with that. This is just going to be. It's going to be cold. This is not going to be like below zero here. We're not talking about that. But it is a very cold stretch, and certainly colder than average. Average high at this location is 38. So if you're 20, 19, 23, that's a lot colder than it should be for this particular location. And if you go a little bit further north, these average highs are a little bit lower. I think up at Wilkes-Barre it's about 35, 36. So you get further north, you go up, it's lower. Down by Philadelphia, it's about 41, I think, is the average high. And we are now at annual climatological minimum temperature. So in other words, the coldest temperatures you'll see all year, or we are in that period right now. Okay, and it will last for the next couple of weeks before we very, very, very slowly increase those temperatures with time. Okay, so that's what the look is for the temperatures for the next couple of weeks here. So we are going to have that cold period coming in. How about beyond that? Well, beyond that, it looks like we are going into February. There's two different camps here. Here's the GFS ensemble, which I think is probably correct. See how it has cold through the end of the month. You get the end of the first week of February, had that little bit of orange come on there, showing a very maybe near to slightly above average temperatures. I think that's right. I think we are going to have a relaxation period in early February, in that first week of February, and then it goes right back to cold again, as you see at the end of the loop. Watch. It goes here, and right back to colder than average again. Just slightly colder than average, but colder than average nevertheless. The European ensemble doesn't have that relaxation period to that extent. Actually, it keeps it at least slightly below average for this entire run all the way through the end of the third week of February. So it doesn't get it mild at all, but I don't know if that's correct. I think we're going to have a relaxation period somewhere in there. It does look transient though, so it doesn't look like it's going to be something that's going to be torchy in the month of for the entire month of February, and that's why that's in large part due to this. And now if this goes into the 4 and 5 solidly instead of going to the circle, and that we are going to be torching. Okay, if this is incorrect, if both of these are incorrect right now with their projections, taking into the circle of death from phase 3 or maybe one day of phase 4 into the circle of death, and it keeps it solidly in 4 and 5 in the maritime continent, that is a La Nina pattern with a southeast ridge, and that means you're going to have warmer temperatures in February. So this is why we don't do seasonal outlooks. Even the intra-seasonal stuff that I see put out there by could be anybody, the Weather Channel, CPC, whatever, and they right away they want to put these things. I don't know if it's just trying to be first or what, especially with the case with the Weather Channel. But they have a torch for us for the month of February. They had a torch in January. That didn't work out. Okay, they had us torching in December. That didn't work out. They're doing it again for February. I can see where it does, but it's going to depend on this. And if this does not go into the 4 and 5 solidly like they were expecting it to, it's not going to torch in February either. Okay, so right now we have, for the month of February as a whole, we have it near to slightly above average, but that's assuming that this goes into 4 and 5, and if it doesn't, we're not going to be that warm. So we'll see. This is something we just need to follow here over the next couple of weeks. But right now, the ensembles are showing that. And here's what they agree on. This is the important part. Because right now we were cold, but we were cold and dry for the most part. We had some minor systems, right, that we dealt with, and that gave us our snowfall. So here is, I'm going to pause this. Oh, I can't pause it. It won't let me. Here's the loop of this is the GFS extended. This goes to look. This is this week where it's dry. That's the brownish colors there, and then after that point it gets wetter. There's the brownish. There, like I was able to stop it. So there's this means it's going to be. This is for this week coming up. We have below average precipitation, but watch what happens when you go after that. It just turns wetter through the end of the month, and then all of the first couple of weeks of February here. So they are both agreeing on this. Both the European Ensemble and the GFS Extended are both agreeing that it is going to be wetter. So again, it doesn't take a genius to figure out if you have colder than average temperatures in place with wetter conditions, it's probably leading to snow, and that's why we kept our slightly above average projection of snowfall for the month of January. Right now we have near average in February just because I don't want to make any big jumps just yet. I want to see what the Madden-Julian oscillation does, if it's going to be warmer for a longer period. Obviously, you have more slop storms, more gradient stuff. By the way, phase 3 in February looks like this. It's a gradient overrunning pattern, which I can see us getting into in the beginning of February, where overrunning systems. So that could be a sloppy mess type thing, or it could be more snow, could be more rain. I mean, it depends on how the temperatures work out, and that's why this is critical to the forecast. But we do have two winter storm signals that I talked about post January 20th. The first one here is in that 20th, 22nd time frame, and you got a signal right there, okay, and then that goes away. Well, there's another one just follow. There's a couple there, and there's another one that comes in behind it after that point, and this is toward the 27th, 28th time frame. So there's several signals there, and this is supported by the European Ensemble too. I'm going to show you this in terms of precipitation. There's the first one after the cold settles in on the 20th, post January 20th. There's the first one. The second one is loading up here at the end of this run right there. Okay, so this is going to come in toward the end of the month there too, that 27th, 28th time frame, and this runs out of range. So there are signals there being shown on the ensembles. We put these signals out a couple days ago when there was no ensembles showing it yet because they weren't in range. Now they're starting to show the range of these, and I think it's going to be a more active pattern here at the end of the month, and that's pretty obvious. And we're starting to see that here in the precipitation departures as well. So if it's colder than average and you're getting this precipitation to be above average, again, doesn't take a genius to figure this out. We're going to be more active with snow. So just temper the calls of winter cancel, because it hasn't done anything so far, it wasn't really expected to do a whole lot just yet. We do have opportunities here post January 20th going into maybe early February, depending if the temperatures cooperate. And there'll be other opportunities in February too, okay? That's the way it's looking. It doesn't look like it's going to be, if you do warm up, it's going to be a very transient warm up, and then we go back to cold again. We have more opportunities for snow, of course, in February as well. So far from winter being over. We're only about, what, 20, I don't know, like 22, 23 days into winter. I mean, it's not, we got a long way to go yet, okay? We got an entire season. This goes all the way through March, of course. Transient up and down temperatures over the next week or so, and a cold front is going to arrive next Saturday. Is going to make this more prolonged of cold and not this up and down stuff we're looking at. We're also going to be dry this upcoming week. The colder temperatures relative average in January at snowfall, we are going to remain projections to be above average for now, okay? Well, then I think, again, that post 20th thing, watching several storm signal periods beyond January 20th after this cold is firmly established. Once that is established and we get into a wetter pattern, I think we can get these above average snowfall across the region. So we will continue to follow that here in the next couple of weeks. It's just a lot of sitting around and waiting right now because, today's only the 12th, and we're going to be dry through up until that cold front moves through next Saturday, which will probably rain, by the way, at that point. Just light, but it should be some rain with the front as it moves through. And then once it moves through, the cold follows, and then we get into our storm signal patterns after that point. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchus. That is this week's edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, January 12th. Join us again next week. We'll hopefully be talking about actual storms at that point that we can discuss instead of just just wait till next week stuff, what we're doing right now. Because right now, this next week, it should be dry with the up and down pattern continuing. So I will see you again at that time. Take care.